Fed screws us again. What's up, everybody? Welcome aboard to Bubba's Bottom Line for Sunday, December the 14th. The year quickly winding to an end. And of course, in this past week, the Federal Reserve had their open market committee and they cut rates once again, which really is just a stick in the eye of the average American. Okay. Rate cuts have not helped anybody. Mortgage rates have not come down. And since the Fed has now cut for the third time, all you have seen is the 10-year notes go from under 4% to 4.2, which really says that we're paying more. Mortgage rates have come down minusculely compared to where they should be. And of course, this is the problem when you have an organization that is really looking out for the banks. It is looking out for everybody but the average American. The K-shaped economy that we're in continues to create more inflation. The Fed cutting rates with the market near all-time record highs makes absolutely no sense. Okay, it does the average guy absolutely no good. We have trouble affording housing, rent, expenses. The only break we've seen for the consumer over the last few months is the fact that oil prices have come down. But in general, inflation is on the rise, and it's only going to get worse unless we get into stagflation, which would be obviously even the worst possible scenario. But the Fed being clueless, okay, and cutting rates into this particular situation, with Jerome Powell using tariffs as the reason for inflation, which is totally false, okay, has created another disaster on its way and ready to come. Now, again, obviously we see a lack of participation in the market, so there's not very much going on. But markets are trying to grind higher, which we'll talk about in our market report. But their whole policy, okay, is to defend the banks. They are basically paying banks not to lend money. In the meantime, you've got the scavengers, and you've got the usury lenders making it available to you. Okay, because of course you can't get money from the banks, so you go to the usury lenders, which is credit card companies, okay, which is, the new 0% on autos, which is not really 0%. It really works out to an effective rate of about 8%. So once again, we've gotten it stuck up our ass again by a Federal Reserve that should be ended, okay, at worst case audited, because the Fed is a worthless organization that somehow Woodrow Wilson either was in on it or got scammed when they started the Fed in 1913. It is a total crock, and they have no interest. They have interest in taking care of the banks, paying the banks not to lend you money. So think about it, okay? Look at it, and you'll see that this is not what really should be happening. It should really be letting the free markets decide, letting the free markets trade. And at the end of the day, that is not what is happening right now, okay? In the meantime, mortgage rates, is this the new normal? Well, again, you're not going back down to 2.5% or 3%. But there are lenders, there are housing developments that are making those deals because they're afraid of the next housing crash. This is no different. The way that they're writing derivatives, the way that they're using collateralized debt is no different than it was in the past, especially 2008. We're not predicting a crash. I mean, there will be a market sell-off at some point, which there always is. That's the natural part of markets. But we have an affordability crisis. And the poverty line keeps moving higher. Okay, that goes back to the K-shaped economy. Okay, we cannot continue at this pace. And of course, you have a situation that the government's got too much debt, inflation is too high, which is obviously sent the precious metals higher. The consumer credit conundrum. Well, again, listen, consumers. The credit card companies, as we said, are giving you no fees until 2027. Okay. Well, but what you don't realize about that stupid progress or process is that the interest rate ticks back to day one. So if I take and defer my payments to 2027, it kicks back if I don't pay in 2027. And this is the problem in America today, is people either are fooling themselves that they'll be able to pay or don't care. And of course, what happens is by the time the bill comes due and you can't pay it, the 30% interest they charge you goes all the way back to day one, which means you can never get out of debt. and this is again, it's no different than the government debt. We're never getting out of debt in this country because we don't have fiscal responsibility from our politicians, whichever side of the aisle you sit on, it doesn't matter. We have no fiscal responsibility in this country. We continue to spend because, of course, our politicians want to get their graft money. Okay. Again, I don't care which side. This is not a bipartisan, or this is a bipartisan view. It doesn't matter which side you sit on. They're all taken. Okay. And they're all creating more debt than we can ever handle and can ever afford. Okay. And as Powell blames the tariffs for inflation, okay, I mean, jobs are going away. That's part of the reason for inflation because we can't have these problems. Okay. And you've got massive layoffs and only more to come. Every job that can be replaced by AI is going to be replaced. So once again, who's going to work? Where are we going to get jobs for people to work? Okay, we're replacing people as it comes, and we're replacing them with machines. So we have those problems to deal with. Okay, you've got the what's going on in Minnesota with the Somalis and with Omar. I mean, this is a scam of all scams. And of course, who's put this in motion originally? Oh, Barack Obama. Okay, when he flooded that area of Minneapolis, and of course, there's a tax scam there. There's money going to Al Shabaab from the Minnesota taxpayer. Okay. Tim Walz has no idea what's going on there, or he's part of it. Again, you have to ask yourself, does he know? Is he that dumb, or is he in on it? That I don't have the answer for. But I mean, the economy is losing jobs. The rate cuts are creating bigger worries. Okay. You've got healthcare, which we're going to talk about in our commentary, that continues to skyrocket. So we're paying more for healthcare because we have a ridiculous Affordable Care Act, which is not affordable. Okay. We have a shitty medical system in this country now that you don't really get to see a doctor. You get a doctor that comes in and looks at you and looks at their computer and asks you a bunch of questions and doesn't do anything to look at you. Okay. So again, we have these problems. Okay. And of course, you've got, a situation that continues to get worse. You have an economy that continues to get worse. And remember, the stock market and the economy don't have to go in the same direction. And eventually they will. But you tell me, there is more homeless running around. There is more debt in this country, okay, than ever before. And I'm not talking about the government debt. I'm talking about individual debt. And I'm not talking about the dollar amount because the dollar amount would be something that is not something that really means anything because of inflation. But the percentage of income, the percentage of worth to debt has never been higher. Okay. And of course, that goes back to that people don't have an emergency spending. If something should go wrong, where are they going to go? Okay. So we have these issues. And of course, a lot of it can be solved. Now, one of the big issues that we've talked about here for years is the cannabis or the marijuana industry. It needs to be legalized federally. Now, there's now rumors and talk about it. We've seen some jump in the cannabis stocks, but there's tax dollars that can be taken and be added, and it could help satisfy debt. Of course, we know that even if they get that, they'll find another way to spend the money. This is the problem that we continue to run through. But marijuana, whether you believe in it or you don't believe in it, okay, should be federally legalized so that these companies can grow, so they can borrow money, so that we can get more tax dollars that can be paid from these companies, very similar to the gambling industry. But we can see also in the gambling industry that the governments, the state governments, which is controlled by the states, don't want the revenue. They want more than their fair share of the revenue when it's basically free revenue because anybody who wants to make a bet, if it's not legal in your state, there are still offshore bookmakers that will take your bets. Okay. So we have government in many states, and in fact, in California, they just eliminated what they had, some of the sweepstakes stuff. Okay. Again, if you want to really do it right, then we have to get government under control. Government is not our friend from a standpoint of taking care of and looking out for our best interest. They're looking out for their own best interest. And I think that's a problem. But you are now seeing companies like Coinbase. Robinhood already did it with Kalshi and the prediction markets. Coinbase is now going into the prediction market business, which is controlled by the CFTC. So again, it's more done as a commodity than anything else, so it can be done in other states. But we have a lot of solutions for a lot of the problems. But the real problem is the greed and the imbeciles that run the governments, especially at the state level, that are too greedy, that want more than their fair share, and don't want to allow these companies to make a living. When if you put in the sports and the cannabis, you would have more tax dollars rolling in than you could possibly imagine, and covering more problems, being to create more for Americans. But who am I to say? This is Bubba's Bottom Line. Todd Bubba Horwitz. It is Sunday, December the 14th. We're going to step out for a break. We'll be back with more in our market report right after the break. Bubba's Bottom Line. Well, kids, what's going on? Well, we're getting close to Christmas. We're getting close to a lot of things. And of course, it's also time to make some decisions. And, you know, we have sponsors for the show and they're brokerage partners. And I do have other brokers, but I think, you know, when you reevaluate every year and you go through a year of trading or investing, you know, you look for who's best. And, you know, again, for equities and options, if you're not using Tradier, you really should go have your head examined. Okay. For $10 a month flat, okay, you can do all the trading you want. You can do all the investing you want. And why anybody would pay more than, I mean, it saves me over $100,000 a year in commission. So again, check them out. They're on our website. They'll be in the end of this video, the website, all the information, but it's $10 a month. Plus the fact that all of our automation that we do, it goes right with Tradier. Okay. So, I mean, check them out. And of course, for futures and commodities, Capital Trading Group, there's nobody better for that. And there's nobody has a better customer service. And if you ever try to get customer service from somebody, CTG picks up the phone. They'll talk to you. And of course, our sponsor and one of our partners and something we've invested in is the Joy of Mom, a great place for moms to get questions, to have forums, to do things. Check it out. It's got an app on Apple and Android, so check it out, Joy of Mom. And of course, our high school program, which of course we want to continue to educate our children and certainly change the course of where we're going now. In the meantime, let's get back to Bubba's Bottom Line with me, Todd Bubba Horwitz. Welcome back. It is Bubba's Bottom Line. It is Sunday, December the 14th. And of course, markets had a mediocre week. We had a Fed meeting this week. And of course, they cut rates, which is, again, as we opened up, which was stupid. But basically, the markets are just really still stuck in consolidation. Even with Friday's big sell-off, I mean, the markets are virtually unchanged for the week, really just churning in a tight range. And again, you would expect markets to, you know, usually this time of year, seasonally bullish. But of course, you know, there's a lot of issues out there. And we're not making any predictions. We do expect that there will be some pretty sharp sell-off at some point here. I don't think it'll come before the end of the year, but you never know. Obviously, we all remember the Black Christmas of December of 2018. But really, it's really a slow market, but there's a lot of signs and things that the markets are telling you, which we talk about the Federal Reserve. If you take a look at gold and silver and platinum, they are skyrocketing. Silver hit $65 this week. And of course, this is telling you that, of course, inflation is too high. Federal debt, government debt is too high. That's why central banks around the globe are accumulating the precious metal. Okay. It's just really ridiculous that we have to live in this kind of situation. But, you know, again, remember, we no longer follow the Constitution. We no longer follow a lot of the mandates and a lot of things around the globe. It's pretty sad, pretty depressing. It's great if you own them, and I do own them, so I'm happy about that. But we've got too many issues and too many problems to deal with. But again, I can't tell you the market's going down tomorrow. I can't. They're still really, if you look at the big picture, markets are really just consolidating. In fact, the Dow and the Russell did make all-time new highs. We did call a top on the NASDAQ and the S&P, and so far they've held those tops, but they're not exactly breaking down from there either, which we didn't expect. But I just want you to be aware, okay? And again, it doesn't mean you position yourself. If you're an investor, you should be hedged and not have to worry about it. If you're a trader, there's plenty of time to get in. You don't have to try to pick the top. We just said that we believe the top to be in, okay? So we'll see how that trades out. In the meantime, the indices The Dow and the Russell were higher for the week. Okay. The S&P and NASDAQ were relatively flat. Okay. In fact, the NASDAQ had a down week with the Friday sell-off of over 500. But overall, again, they don't look great. There's a true lack of participation. There's not a lot of volume. So that does cause a little bit cause for concern. But we'll see how it plays out in the long run. In the meantime, again, if you're going to take a shot, okay, you still got to take a shot to the upside. I mean, if you're going to take a shot, I'm not recommending you do anything. I'm recommending you observe and look for a spot to get in. But if you said, hey, I just got to make a trade, well, obviously we know the long-term moves are typically higher. So at the end of the day, I think there's a big sell-off coming. I would choose to observe and look for opportunity and hedge what I have. But at the end of the day, you have to make that decision. But certainly, I wouldn't be saying, well, we're going down yet. I mean, I would say probably not until January, but we'll see. Again, we can't predict the time. In the meantime, the dollar had a little bit of sell-off this week, came right back down to support. We'll see what happens in there. The euro currency rallied a little bit, trying to break out to the upside. Bonds and notes continue to go lower, which means interest rates are going higher. As I said earlier, 10-year notes are at 4.2, and 30s are at 4.9. Again, where's the cuts? Where's the rate cut? See, but people don't realize that the rate cut doesn't benefit the individual. It benefits the banks. Okay, it gives them more money on the spread, and they're actually getting paid not to lend money. So again, it's a real problem when we talk about it. Bitcoin, it's still kind of consolidating, around that 90,000. We like Bitcoin, but again, it is a little ugly in here. It has found a consolidation, so maybe 84,000 or 80,000 was the bottom. Gold, silver, and platinum continue to charge higher. Now, silver took it in the shorts a little bit on Friday, but think about this: it was up at $65, so the $2 sell-off is no big deal. Copper continues to try to charge higher. Doesn't make a lot of sense, but again, I can't argue with the move. I mean, certainly it looks like it wants to go up, and it has been. Now, the grain markets continue to be under pressure. They are at support. Um, Poor farmers, they're working on a loss, whatever they're planning. And of course, we're coming up to, starting in February, March, we go into planting season again. And, are they going to plant? That's one of the questions you have to ask yourself. Do they do something else? This is a problem. Okay. But certainly I'd be looking to be a buyer of grains if I were going to plan. Cattle markets are right at that 230 level that we thought would be a spot to sell. They'd rally a little bit this week. We'll see, but I still believe that they're going lower. Again, I don't know who the consumer is who's going to be able to buy it. Natural gas, as we said last Sunday, okay, that we felt that the top was made on last Friday, a week ago. And of course, it looked pretty good. Natural gas has dropped about $1.40 over the week. So I think you've seen the short squeeze, and I think it's over. It looks like crude oil is going down, and I think crude oil is going to the low 50s. Right now, it's in the mid 50s or the high to mid 50s. Again, that's the biggest statement on the economy is oil. Okay, oil is our biggest resource. Okay, it has 80% of effect on the economy. Okay, and it's getting hammered. So what does that tell you about the strength of the economy? So I don't care what the government tells us. I don't care how good they say. I heard President Trump say that he's cut mortgage payments on. Not true. False. Okay. The economy is in bad shape. Yes, for some of you, it is great. For me, it has no effect. Okay. But if you're a working person and you're trying to make it, the economy sucks. This is Bubba's Bottom Line. Todd Bubba Horwitz. It is Sunday, December the 14th. We'll step out here for our final break and come back with, of course, our commentary, our football picks, and we'll be back in a minute. All right, kids, listen, remember, TRADIER Brokerage. All of our sponsors are on the slide. TRADIER Brokerage, Capital Trading Group, The Joy of Mom, and our high school program. Let's get back to Bubba's Bottom Line with me and my commentary, and, of course, my football picks right now. Welcome back. Bubba's Bottom Line, Todd Bubba Horwitz. Sunday, December the 14th. And of course, we're running towards Christmas. And of course, we're running towards, healthcare, which sucks. The Affordable Care Act is a piece of shit. It always has been. Obamacare is a piece of shit. It always has been. And why we can't get back to private insurance, I have no idea. If Obamacare, or Affordable Care Act was any good, then why don't our senators and why don't our Congress use it themselves? But I think the real problem in the industry is that they have screwed the doctors. And I don't know who started this first. Okay, did doctors screw the insurance companies first, or did insurance companies screw the doctors first? That I have no idea. But I know you don't get any service when you go to an office. You go to a doctor's office, and there's, depending on how many people are in the practice, the waiting room is packed. You can't get an appointment. Okay. You have an emergency. Well, we can see you in a week. I mean, really, it's become a national disaster, the whole healthcare system that we have. And when you finally get to see the doctor, they don't take the interest in why you're there. They're sitting there with their computer entering everything because they're more worried about getting paid. Okay. They're more worried about they have to do X amount. And I feel sorry for the doctors because, again, who would want to be a doctor now? You're running a factory. Okay. You're doing piecework. And it doesn't make sense that, if you go for something and then if it's something else, you got to come back and make another appointment. I think the system has failed us. I think the government and what they've done and this battle on the healthcare has failed us. Okay. And I think that we have to do better, and we have to make it better for everybody. And it can certainly be done under the right circumstances. But again, the Medicare system, which I am on Medicare, okay, I think it's a scam. Okay. I think it's a scam that when I go to the doctor, then I have to come back. Why? Because they want another visit. They want another office visit. Now, it doesn't cost me. Now it costs me through my taxes. It costs you through your taxes. And I think that's I think it's designed improperly. And I think it's done more as a scam than anything else. Yes, it's great to have Medicare. I paid for it my whole life. I mean, that's part of the FICA tax that you pay. Okay. So I'm happy that I have it, but I think it could be so much better. And it could actually, I believe, be more profitable. But the problem is that we've got all of these scam artists that are trying to work the system. Okay. And I think that's the bigger problem. And I think those things need to be resolved. That's the way that I see it. But right now, I think our healthcare system sucks. I think there should be more done. I think the Affordable Care Act sucks. Okay. I think we could do so much better if we worked it out better. But again, this goes back to, I don't care which side of the aisle you sit on, it's all bullshit. This is Bubba's Bottom Line, Todd Bubba Horwitz. And of course, for my football picks this week, if you're interested, and they haven't been very good, so we've been better recently. But if you're interested, we do like the Buffalo Bills, we do like the Cincinnati Bengals, and we do like the Los Angeles Rams. Have a great weekend, everybody. Thanks so much for being here. We'll see you back here next week with another Bubba's Bottom Line. Adios.
Joy of Mom is a platform to connect mothers everywhere with trusted information, practical tools, and a vibrant, family-focused community.
Gold IQ Group, the smartest minds in metals, for all of your precious metals needs.
Capital Trading Group, the introducing broker for serious futures traders.
TRADIER, options trading starting at $10 per month, flat fee.